Ti devo richiamare. Ti devo richiamare. Ciao. Monica Di Matteo, Francesco, Roberto Bracco, Max Relax.
Buongiorno a tutti.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. It is at 10:02. I'm Monica De Vigilis, and pursuant to Article 11.2 of the bylaws, in my capacity as Chairman of the Board of Directors, I will serve as Chair of today's ordinary meeting and declare the meeting duly open. I call Professor Carlo Marchetti, Notary Public, to serve as Secretary. The Notary Public agrees to serve as Secretary of the meeting. I would like to inform you that in compliance with the provisions in force, the notice of the shareholders' meeting was published in full on the company's website on April 4, 2025, and as excerpt in the daily newspapers Il Sole 24 Ore and in the English language version in the Financial Times on April 5. Agenda: financial statement at December 31st, 2024, related and consequent resolutions, Board of Directors report, including the 2025 Consolidated Sustainability Report, reports of the Board of Statutory Auditors and the independent auditing firm, presentation of the consolidated financial statement as December 31st, 2024. Point 2, allocation of the profits for the year and distribution of the dividend. Item 3, authorization to purchase and dispose of treasury shares subject to revocations of the authorization granted by the ordinary shareholders meeting of May 7 for the part not yet implemented, relevant and consequent resolutions. 4, employee stock ownership plan, related and consequent resolutions. 5, report on the remuneration policy and compensation paid, with 2 sections. First section, report on the remuneration policy binding resolution. 5.2, report on the compensation paid non-binding resolution. Determination of the number of members of the Board of Directors. Item 7, determination of the term of office of directors. 8, appointment of directors. 9, appointment of the chairman of the Board of Directors. 10, determination of the remuneration of the members of the Board of Directors. 11, appointment of the statutory auditors. 12, appointment of the chairman of the Board of Statutory Auditors. 13, determination of remuneration of the chairman and the members of the Board of Statutory Auditors. In addition to the undersigned, Stefano Venier, Managing Director, and Directors Laura Cavatorta, Augusta Iannini, Pietro Manzoni, Rita Rolli are also attending. For the Board of Statutory Auditors, we have the following auditors: Stefano Gnocchi, Chairman, and Gianfranco Chinellato, Standing Auditors. The following are absent with excuses: Massimo Bergami, Quintin Shen, and Alessandro Tonetti, with excuses, and the Standing Auditor Ines Gandini. Also attending: Paolo Rolli, Alessandro Gallo, Giada Brusatori, and Laura Campbulli, representing Deloitte & Touch, the company appointed to audit the financial statements and consolidated financial statements. The share capital is 2,735,670,475.56 euros, divided into 3,360,857,899 shares with no par value. I announce that the attending shareholders currently have 175 for a total number of shares of 2,735,670,475. That is 69.22%. 47.59 of the social the voting share capital. I ask Professor Maschetti to provide the necessary info to complete the preliminary steps to declare the meeting duly convened. Thank you. I would like to inform you that an electronic voting system using radio voter has been adopted to reduce the duration of the operation. Should technical problems arise in connection with the exercise of voting through radio voter, voting will be conducted by a show of hand. Here you see the slide illustrating how the radio voter is taken. As a reminder, when I would like to inform you that when asked to cast a vote, with the exception of votes under item number 8 of the agenda concerning the appointment of the board of directors and under number 11, the person entitled on the proxy shall cast their vote by pressing only one of the buttons of the radio voter. That is for, again, abstain, and then the UK button. With regard the list voting for the renewal of the board of directors, shareholders are invited to express the preference for one of the slates presented by typing on the radio voter the one button and the two button in preference granted for the slate presented by the asset management companies. With regard to the list for the renewal of the board of statutory auditors related to item number 11, shareholders are invited to express their preference pressing the button number 1 for CDP Reti and number 2 for the asset management companies. The green favorable button should not be used. This is without prejudice to the use of the red against button and the yellow abstain button. Following the expression of vote, I remind you to press the OK key. As long as the latter key is not pressed, the voting intention can be changed. Voting may be done with 1 minute after the start of each vote. After this time, the vote will be declared closed. Those who do not cast any vote will be considered non-voters. I would like to remind you that representatives of multiple shareholders or trust companies who wish to cast differential votes within the proxy receives must necessarily go to the assisted voting station. If for technical reasons it is not possible to use the radio voter, a show of hand vote will be taken. Pursuant to Article 1211 of the European Regulation GDPR, I inform you that the personal data of the participants will be acquired in the form and within the limits related to the obligations, tasks, and purposes provided by the current legislation. The list of names of those entitled to participate in person or in proxy with an indication of the number of shares held by each complete with the names of those who intervene later. I inform you that, as recommended by CONSOB, financial analysts, journalists, and qualified experts are enabled to follow the proceedings at the meeting. I give the names of there are Press MF, La Presse, IDM Cronos, Autonomia, Giornali d'Italia. And you will have all the list of names. I would like to inform you that pursuant to Article 5.2, the Bureau has been constituted at which Umberto Baldi and Stefano Sperzaghi are present. I point out that an audio-video recording system of speeches is in operation. The recording will be available with a 3-minute delay on the Society's website. Pursuant to Article 4, no recording instruments of any kind except those mentioned above, nor camera or similar devices may be used on the premises. Simultaneous translation service from Italian to English is provided. Pursuant to Article 7 of the Rules of Procedures, requests to speak may be submitted to the appropriate desk located at the back of the room from the time the meeting is duly convened until discussion on relevant items on the agenda. Each entitled person may take only one speech on each item on the agenda. Maximum length 5 minutes for each item that will be brought up to discussion so that all entitled people are allowed to speak and express their opinion. No rebuttal speeches are allowed. And At the close of the debate, only brief explanations of vote are allowed, which, as of now, is indicated by the chair as 2 minutes of total time available to the individual subject. I specify that in the event of the submission of amendments to the proposal made by the Council or otherwise of proposal different from those made by the Council's proposal will be put to vote first, and only in the event that such proposal is rejected, the additional proposals will be put to a vote. If points of order are presented, the chair will decide what will be put to vote first. And if the proposals are rejected, the motion of those present. The proposal of those present will be put to the vote, starting with the proposal submitted by those representing the largest percentage of capital. Only if the proposal put to vote is rejected, will the next proposal in order of capital represented be put to vote. I would like to inform you that in connection with today's meeting, the formalities required by civil law and provisions of regulated markets have been carried out. I turn the floor to the chair to complete the formalities. Thank you. Pursuant to the powers vested in me by Article 2371 of the Civil Code and Article 11, I declare the general meeting duly convened to resolve on the items of the agenda. I would like to inform you that on April 18, the majority shareholder, CPD Reti, when filling the list of candidates for the appointment of corporate bodies submitted to the company pursuant to Article 126 bis paragraph 1 of the TUF, the proposal to appoint Alessandro Zentner as chairman of the board of directors of Snam. The company has not received any request to supplement the agenda and/or to submit new resolution proposals pursuant to the law and Article 126 bis of the TUF. I would also like to inform you that voting legitimacy has been verified on the basis of the circumstances known to the company and the statements of those present. In any case, I request those in attendance to communicate, in accordance with the provisions of the law, current regulations and the bylaws, and in relation to all votes, the existence of situations of lack of entitlement to vote or exclusions from voting, as well as the existence, to the extent known, of any shareholders' agreement. I would like to remind you that, pursuant to Article 120, paragraph 5 of TUF, the voting right inherent in listed shares for which notifications concerning the ownership of significant shareholdings have been omitted by the relevant holders, except for the cases identified in the regulations on issuers by Consub and subsequent amendment and additions, with resolutions number 11971 of May 14, 1999. Pursuant to Article 122, paragraph 4 of the TUF, voting rights concerning the slates for which the obligations regarding the transparency of shareholders' agreement have not been fulfilled by the relevant holders may not be exercised. I therefore invite shareholders to make any request now for clarification of voting eligibility or statements of their own lack of voting eligibility. None of the attended make any remark, so I would like Professor Marchetti to illustrate how the conference will be held. On May 5, the company held 6,461,1949 treasury shares, equivalent to 0.1192% of the share capital. The company holds no additional treasury shares in its portfolio, not even subsidiaries. Pursuant to Article 2357, treasury shares are counted for the purpose of calculating the constitutive quorum. That being said, 3,359,397,370 ordinary shares are entitled to vote, excluding the indicated treasury shares. The shareholders who directly and indirectly own voting shares representing more than 3% of the total issued shares are CTP Reti, Romano Minzotti, Lazarda Settlement Management. The company is aware of the shareholders' agreement published in accordance with the law on the company website, pursuant to Article 122, between GDP Reti, State Grid Europe Limited, and State Grid International Development Limited, which also concerns Snam. I would like to inform you that the answers to the questions formulated during the meeting will be given after the conclusion of all the speeches on each item and on all items on the agenda, with preference given to the latter option where the speech requires in-depth analysis on a particular answer. At the end of the speeches and the answers, shareholders will be allowed to give their explanation of vote and the proposal on the items on the agenda. I would like to inform you that in relation to the right to ask questions pursuant to Article 127, we received questions by Redcom ETS, Marco Bava and Luigi Santi. As required by the aforementioned regulations and the notice of meeting, special files containing the relevant answers have already been published on May 12, 225 of the company website and will be attached to the minutes of the meeting. I would like to remind you that in accordance with the law, the company has designated Studio Trevidan Associati, herein intervening the person of Mr. Giulio Toretti, as the designated representative to whom we entitled person could grant a proxy with voting instructions on all of the sum of the proposals. I invite the appointed representative to indicate the number of shares for which he did not intend to participate in the vote pursuant to Article 135, as well as to make the declarations required by the regulations in force in the event that, assuming the conditions are met, he would vote in a manner different from the institution received. I also invite the appointed representative to indicate each individual vote. Trevisan Associati declared to the company that it has complied with the confidentiality obligation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now I give you the floor. I would like to thank Professor Marchetti for the additional information, and I declare the meeting duly convened. Before moving on to the discussion of the item on the agenda, I would like to inform you that the reports of the Board of Directors containing the proposed resolutions have been deposited at the company's registered office and made available to the public at the company website and at the authorized storage mechanism e-market storage within the terms of the law and have been sent to those who requested them. There was also delivered to the entrance of the meeting room a computer medium containing, among other things, the reports, the annual financial report 2024, the consolidated sustainability report for the year 2024, the report on remuneration policy and compensation paid 2025, and the report on corporate governance and ownership structure 2024 of Snam. These documents can be accessed by framing the QR code made available by the company. In relation to the type of topics on the agenda, I propose to deal with them jointly. Items 1 and 2 on the agenda, items 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 on the agenda, items 11, 12 and 13 on the agenda. Of course, voting will be held separately on each item on the agenda. I also recommend for items on the agenda to omit the reading of the aforementioned documents with the understanding that a brief introduction of the topic will be provided where appropriate and the proposed resolutions will be read. So, we move on to item 1 and 2 on the agenda. Financial statement as at December 31st, 2024, necessary and consequent resolutions, report of the Board of Directors, including the consolidated sustainability report for the year 2024, reports of the Board of Statutory Auditors and the independent auditors, presentation on the consolidated financial statement, allocation of profit for the year and distribution of dividend. I ask Professor Marchetti, with the consent of the attendees, to give some information regarding the fulfillments made about the financial statements, documentation, and the activities of the auditing company. I would like to inform you that the file containing the financial statement of Snam and the consolidated financial statement, the director's report, the consolidated sustainability report for 2024, the report of the Board of Statutory Auditors and the independent auditors, and the Board of Directors' proposal to the shareholder meeting regarding the approval of the financial statements and the allocation for the profit has been deposited at the company's registered office and at the authorized storage mechanism on April 10. As a reminder, the above documentation was also sent to those who requested it. Thank you, Professor Marchetti. I would like to read you the shareholder letter. Ladies and gentlemen, the way 2024 ended confirmed the volatility of the global energy market, which remains high despite stabilization measures adopted at both national and EU level. These measures have led something to believe that the energy crisis was behind us. For example, there is a disconnection between the sector's increasingly solid fundamentals and price trends, which rise that thanks to the progressive implementation of the many projects underway, including those led by Snam, have no longer reached the peaks of 2022. Snam has continued to achieve significant results across all the areas of businesses and has reaffirmed its commitment to safety and energy transition, demonstrating remarkable resilience in the face of a geopolitical context marked by the ongoing war in Ukraine, tensions linked to the expiry of Russian gas transit contracts through processes in Europe and the territory controlled by Kyiv, the escalation of the Middle East crisis, and the uncertainty arising from the electoral process in Europe and the United States. While awaiting the gradual easing of central banks' restrictive policies to trigger a stronger recovery, the Italian economy, despite ongoing structural issues affecting business competitiveness, has recorded a sharp drop in the inflation rate and a significant increase in employment. Meanwhile, the implementation of the NRRP continues. Italy will face major tests in 2025 and 2026 to successfully complete the final stage of the plan. In line with the Repower EU plan, the consolidation of the European energy system has progressed, with further diversification of supply sources. In 2024, in particular, the EU countries collectively received more than 50% of U.S. liquefied natural gas exports, preparing, thanks also to the strengthened storage and increased flows from the east and south, to absorb, largely without disruption, the halt in residual volumes of Russian gas. Italy was no exception. 2024 closed with the arrival in Piombino of the fifth gas carrier. In the meantime, Snam also acquired a further stake in Adriatic LNG from 7 to 30%, thus becoming the third largest regasification operator in Europe. It is now preparing for the entry into service of the Ravenna offshore terminal, which will raise the country's regasification capacity to 28 million cubic meters, the same volume supplied by Russia in 2021. Snam also acquired a further stake in the Adriatic LNG. Piombino. Since it is global, LNG is subject to a significant price variability, a scenario against which Snam continues to safeguard the country through the parallel development of pipeline infrastructure and storage facilities. In this direction, in 2024 alone, works worth 2.6 billion euros have been approved by the Ministry of the Environment and Energy Safety and by the regions. The realization of Phase 1 of the Adriatic Line came into full swing, and included in the PNRR was awarded funding of 375 million euros. The PP also includes adjustments to increase export capacities. The storage facilities proved to be equally strategic, filled in record time, also thanks to the counterflow services. The approval of the capacity increase at the Fiume Trieste site and the recent acquisition of Edison Stoccaggio further consolidate our leadership in the sector. All this enables us to continue ensuring the right balance between renewable energy sources, such as solar and wind, with a clear awareness of the complementarity between electrons and molecules, both of which are crucial to achieving the decarbonization goals shared across the system. Snam continues to work on a broad scale to support the sustainable transition of both its business and national system. In April last year, in particular, the European Commission officially recognized the South 2 corridor as a project of common interest, a fundamental step which was followed at the end of the year by the presentation of the National Strategy for Hydrogen by the government. The same PCI status was also notified to the Ravenna project for the capture and storage of CO2 conducted in joint venture with Eni, and which entered the phase 1 in August with very promising results. The approval procedures required for phase 2, for which a market survey was conducted with registered considerable interest from the main hard-to-abate sectors, have begun, and the project is expected to be operational starting from 2028. On the emission front, in 2024 versus 2015, we recorded a 63% decrease in methane emissions, obtaining the gold standard recognition for the Oil and Gas Methane Partnership for the 4th consecutive year. Furthermore, direct CO2 emissions have decreased by 22% in 2 years, a sign of progressive development of our climate strategy, which aims at the near zero on scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions by 2050. These commitments were reaffirmed in the transition plan presented in October, which, illustrating our short, medium, and long-term objectives and the resources with which we intend to achieve them, is at the same time divided into scenarios that show the high rates of employment of our multi-molecule assets also in 2004 and 2050. Furthermore, with this document, we intend to relaunch the evolution of all-round commitment to sustainability with a complete definition of a biodiversity strategy within which, by 2027, we aim to have a positive impact on the ecosystem affected by our activities and our construction sites. Innovation received a strong boost in 2024 with progress on the Snam Tech program and the launch of our asset control room, the result of work that will be systematized in the coming months and further strengthened by the rollout of our innovative plan scheduled for mid-2025. The year ended with a further increase in sustainable finance, reaching 84%, a threshold that already enables us to meet the 85% target set for 2027, bringing us closer to the 90% target for 2029, and further strengthening investors' confidence. Confidence that is, after all, well placed, given the strong growth in financial indicators recorded over the past 3 years, from EBITDA plus 23% to net profit plus 10%, not to mention capital investments, which were 3 times higher than the pre-crisis average. We also want to highlight the work undertaken since 2022 that has seen our main international subsidiaries grow, maximizing their value. The breadth and variety of those commitments allow us to reaffirm and build on the defining characteristics that, in many respects, make Snam unique within the European energy landscape. As a continental leader in gas infrastructure, our group is in fact only system operator across the entire midstream value chain, with a pan-European presence and a clear ambition to build and manage energy infrastructures for a sustainable future. The breadth and variety of these commitments allow us to reaffirm and build on the defining characteristic that, for many aspects, makes them unique within the European energy landscape. We have invested 12.4 billion euros, more than a third of which are aligned with the European taxonomy. This commitment, 10.9 million euro, will strengthen the sustainable development of transport, storage and regasification infrastructures, while 1.5 million, 25%, will further enable our business platform for the energy transition, including biomethane and energy efficiency. This commitment will not prevent us from increasing shareholders' remuneration, with the dividend expected to grow by 4% per year, up from previous 3%. None of this would be possible without the active involvement of Snam's people, who, at every level, continue to represent the group's most important asset, especially during such a complex and challenging phase, marked by the implementation of projects that are complex, multifaceted and interconnected, highly interconnected. We will therefore continue to invest in training, development, corporate welfare, active diversity, equity and inclusion policies. We look to the future with confidence, from infrastructure projects to energy transition, fully aware of the challenges posed by the current context, but also of our ability to work together with all stakeholders to achieve goals that affect the future of all of us.
Thank you very much for your attention. I would like now to give the floor to CEO Stefano Venier so that he can comment on the company's operations during 2024. Thank you very much, Ms. Chair. Well, I would say the Chair's report has been extremely comprehensive, and so for the sake of time, I will be very brief. We prepared a short presentation. This is the third year of a 3-year period, and for this reason, I think it makes sense to focus on the developments that have been characterizing these 3-year period. On this page, you see the main developments and what stands out within the framework of the strategy that we've designed with the European and Italian government is the great push to adopting flexible structures that can transport energy throughout Italy and Europe. As you can see, this capacity has grown within the country from 6 to 19 billion cubic meters, and this is going to increase even further, considering the contribution by Ravenna, which is now offering the capacity for the first load. And on top of that, we've focused our efforts on strengthening storage capacity. Storage has become a key factor in our system and has changed our strategy. It is no longer a physical instrument to cover winter consumption. So it has also taken on a strategic asset for balancing prices and for having proper resources, as it was the case this winter in Central Europe. It was a stabilizing element for the power grid, considering that renewable sources cannot be programmed. This has been coupled with a huge efforts from a viewpoint of investments between 2022 and 24. Investments increased by 50%. So we reached 2 billion euros without considering investments in acquisitions. These are just investments in infrastructures. But in 2022, the first year of the Russia-Ukraine crisis, a first effort was made in order to cover short-term needs. And so it would be better to compare the situation before 2022, when the company invested on average 1 billion a year. And so we can see this investment as a threefold increase. This is, of course, the situation that took place after a peak, and in order to secure the system. We shall not forget, however, that at the same time, safety, security, economic sustainability, and green transition are the key elements of the so-called energetic trilemma that has become so fashionable in the past few years. Investment growth has also been coupled by a great growth in the results of a company, also considering that Snam is focusing on infrastructure and that the yield depends on the investments. EBITDA increased by 23% in the past 3 years, with a great jump ahead in 2024, when the investments of 2022 and 23 were established, the gas carrier in Piombino, for example. Net profit increased by 11%, 1.289 million euros, but this will be the subject of future of the next resolutions. As the chair pointed out in her letter, we made a lot of efforts to reduce CO2 emissions. In 2024, scope 1 and 2 emissions decreased by 28% versus 2022. If we focus on the next page, you see in a nutshell the activities performed. I will not go into the details of each individual goal and each individual activity performed. However, I would like to focus on the colors. Blue is what we have accomplished in the gas infrastructure sector, and green are the energy transition measures. And this is important because in tackling the gas energy crisis, we have not neglected our goals to build an energy transition platform that can complete the process for the following 20 years towards the ambition of becoming a multi-molecule pan-European operator. The green bullet points are all the measures and all the activities that have been put in place in the framework of energy transition. In the following page, you see a summary of the corporate results. I would not go into the details of the facts and figures because the chair already pointed them out, and this applies both to financial results, to external growth that is positioning Snam on an international platform, but we have a clear goal. We want to focus on the fundamental energy sourcing assets in Europe. In particular, focusing on the strategic role that Italy can play as a hub for the north-south and south-north axis, and for the eastern-western axis on the Mediterranean. In so doing, we would replace the traditional sourcing axis that was from north to south via Russia. In the following page, you see an overview of our operations. I would say we've been working in a well-balanced way throughout the entire value chain, thus strengthening not only energy security within our country, but also the role of our company at a European level, so that Snam is the leading company in terms of transportation, storage, and GNL LNG producer. If we want to express it in a different way, this has been a true startup that in a matter of 2 years we've managed to become a leading player with 5 plants active plants at a European level. Well, here I just would like to point out a couple of elements. The fact of delivering our promises and in creating the largest biomethane platform in Italy has been really paramount. At present, the company manages a lot of plants, participated in the auctions, and all the projects have been approved. 23 projects will be implemented by mid-2026 within the terms of the recovery plan. And so we would achieve 70 megawatts of biomethane production. It's the largest platform in Italy. This role was played by Snam as well to service the country with these multi-molecule assets. Well, as far as the strategic levers are concerned, the all-round sustainability has already been mentioned. We submitted a sustainability plan that I invite you all to read. It clearly describes the roadmap in order to reach carbon neutrality and net zero by 2030 and 2040. We defined very clear deadlines, 2027, 2030, 2032, and we also consider the financial means. And so we have the deadlines for achieving our goals and the cost of financing to reach these goals. And I think this is a very responsible way. The same applies to innovation. We submitted the innovation plan a couple of days ago, and this is a further element of the roadmap highlighting our focal points in order to transform ourselves from a TSO to rationale that will make us increasingly resilient. We will use infrastructures in a more optimized way, thus optimizing redundancy investments, but we also want to adapt those infrastructures to other molecules. I would skip the following pages because they simply contain a detailed view of the figures. Transparency has always been key to our company, and so we want to report in detail on what we have achieved. So moving on to page number 15. What is Snam today? Snam is a company with great results for you as shareholders, and we're very proud of that. We also report on the achievement of the business results that we set. Well, part of them were set by others, and we managed to achieve them all. We made important steps. We still have some further steps to make, especially at a pan-European level. And considering the entrance in the German market, that will allow the company to have an end-to-end control of the south-north axis. And this is great for both the present and the future with a view to the transition policy. Our financial structure has become and has remained strong and sound by using especially sustainable finance that accounts for 85% of our funding. And I think these lays the foundations for an incredible growth in the years ahead. As you heard from the chair earlier, not only from an economic but also from an industrial perspective. And I think that for you as shareholders, this company can represent an attractive investment with a proper and satisfactory yield, as the market is acknowledging for the first part of the year after the submission of the business plan. We increased we reached the €5 threshold again in the past few weeks. Thank you very much. Thank you, Stefano. And now Stefano Gnocchi, the chairman of the Board of Statutory Auditors, and Paola Rolli, partner of Deloitte and Touche. I invite them to read, respectively, the conclusion included in the report of the Board of Statutory Auditors to the shareholders pursuant to Article 153 of the Consolidated Law on Finance and Article 2429 of the Italian Civil Code, and the final part of the Independent Auditor's Report on the financial statement. Thank you, and good morning, everyone. I read the final part of the report of the Board of Statutory Auditors to the shareholders' meeting. Pursuant to Article 153 of the Consolidated Law on Finance and Article 2429 of the Italian Civil Code. The Board of Statutory Auditors does not find, as far as its competence is concerned, any reason to oppose the approval of the financial statements for the year ending the 31st of December 2024, the draft of which was prepared and approved by the Board of Directors on the 19th of March 2025, and the proposals formulated by the same to the shareholders' meeting regarding the allocation of the profit for the year and the distribution of dividends. I thank those present for their attention. Thank you, Stefano. Paola? Thank you, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I shall read out the parts of the report relating to the financial statements and other legal and regulatory provisions. We've audited the financial statements of Snam S.p.A. In our opinion, the financial statements provide a true and fair view of the financial position of the company as of the 31st of December 2024, of its results of operations and of its cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with IFRS as issued by the International Accounting Standard Board and as adopted by the European Union, and with the measures issued in implementation of Article 9 of Legislative Decree number 38, 2005. As for the other procedures, we have performed the procedures specified in Auditing Standard SA Italy number 700B in order to express an opinion on whether the financial statements for the year ended 31st of December 2024 comply with the provisions of the Delegated Regulation 2019/815 of the European Commission concerning regulatory technical standards and the specification of a single electronic communication format, ESEF, hereinafter delegated regulation. In our opinion, the financial statements as at the 31st of December 2024 have been prepared in the XHTML format in accordance with the provisions of the delegated regulation. We've performed the procedures specified in Auditing Standard SA Italy number 720B in order to express our opinion and statement pursuant to Article 14, paragraph 2, letters E, E-bis and E-ter of Legislative Decree 3910 and pursuant to Article 123bis, paragraph 4 of Legislative Decree 58 of 1998. In our opinion, the report on operations and the specific information included in the report on corporate governance and ownership structure indicated in Article 123 bis paragraph 4 of Legislative Decree 58/98 are consistent with the financial statements of Snam S.p.A. as of the 31st of December 2024. Furthermore, in our opinion, the report on operations, excluding the section on consolidated sustainability reporting and the specific information contained in the report on corporate governance and ownership structure specified in Article 123 bis, paragraph 4 of Legislative Decree 58/98 are prepared in accordance with the law. With reference to the statement referred to in Article 14, paragraph 2, letter E-ter of Legislative Decree 39 of 2010, issued on the basis of the knowledge and understanding of the company and its context acquired in the course of the audit activity, we have nothing to report. I thank you all for your attention. I'd like to thank both Stefano Gnocchi and Paolo Rolli for their respective speeches, and I ask Professor Macchetti to read out the Board of Directors' proposed resolutions on items number 1 and 2 on the agenda of today's meeting. Dear shareholders, you are invited to approve the financial statements of Snam S.p.A. for the year ended 31st of December 2024, which closed with a profit of 1,232,778,680.86 euros. As for the profit, you are invited to allocate the profit of the year of euro 842,997,823.67 euros, which remains after the distribution of the interim dividend for 2024 of euro 0.1162 per share, resolved by the Board of Directors on the 6th of November 24, as follows. To shareholders as a dividend 0.1743 per share, to the shares outstanding on the ex-dividend date of coupon number 43, excluding treasury shares at portfolio at the date, as the balance of the interim dividend, allocating the amount remaining after payment of the balance to the retained earnings reserve. The dividend for the 2024 financial year is therefore determined between interim and final payment as of euro 0.2905 per share. To pay the balance of the dividend of euro 0.1743 per share as of the 25th of June 2025, a record date 24th of June 2025, with ex-dividend date number 43 on the 23rd of June 2025. Thank you, Professor Marchetti. I inform you that 3 shareholders have registered to speak on item number 1 and 2 on the agenda of the shareholders' meeting, to whom I give the floor according to the order of registration. I remind you that, as previously stated, answers to any questions that may be asked will be given at the end of the speeches on each item or on all the items on the agenda of the shareholders' meeting, with preference being given to the second option, where the speech requires in-depth analysis and or particularly articulate answers. Youssef Seer, please. Hello, I'm here today on behalf of young Italian Palestinians, and I speak considering the important ethical and strategic responsibilities of Italian companies, and as a representative of a community that has been experiencing with pain what has been going on in the Gaza Strip. We are confronted with one of the greatest humanitarian crises, with a lot of victims, destroyed schools and hospitals, hampering people to have access to health care. It's a sort of an ethnic cleansing. The Court of Justice opened an investigation for genocide. Within this framework, the economic industrial involvement of Snam is worrisome, considering the involvement with Israel companies. In 2020, Snam signed 3 memorandum of understandings with H2 Pro and other companies for mobility and energy purposes. In 2021, they acquired 25% of this Mediterranean gas company, owner of a gas pipeline. This pipeline provides for the transportation of gas from Tamari Leviathan to Egypt, and this gas is used locally or resold on international markets, also European. New Med Energy is one of the shareholders, and they also work in the Palestinian territory, as documented by many ONG sources. We are here today not to start court litigations, but to highlight the importance of ethical and strategic responsibilities. The links with energy transportation companies that are involved in the conflict can expose to direct sanctions or reputational damage. The ESG integration that Snam promotes within their reports must be consistent. In its ethical code, Snam declares to promote and safeguard human rights, highlighting values such as freedom and defense of civil and political rights. It is therefore inconsistent and a damage to their reputation to continue to keep agreements with companies working in the field difficult and violating the humanitarian international rights. Therefore, we are asking the board of directors, the CEO and the investors to sell their stake in the company NG, to withdraw from any agreements in force with the Israeli government and H2 Pro and other Israeli companies, as long as there are doubts on the fulfillment of international civil rights, to start due diligence on active partners in the territories, and to start a policy for the fulfillment of human rights in conflict areas. Without a transparent and responsible action, Snam can be accused of being involved in very serious violation of rights due to economic reasons. Today, Snam can make an important decision for respecting the rights and acting against this genocide. Stefano, do you want to answer? Well, let's listen to all the questions first, and then we will give answers. And now I'd like to give the floor to Elena Gerebica. Thank you, Ms. Chair. I would like to focus your attention on these, on the following questions. The association Recommon has been looking at the company, especially since sustainability, corporate governance, and other topics have become an integral part of the language that Snam has been using. We're not happy with some of the answers that we received from the company to our questions, and for this reason I'd like to reiterate 5 questions that may imply a reputational risk. First, Tunisia is a partner for the South H2 corridor, a hydrogen corridor that should connect North Africa to Germany, and which is at the center of Snam investment plan. International media reported on the violation of human rights by the Tunisian government. Last but not least, some weeks ago, 40 people were convicted for conspiration and mass conspiration. We are asking the management whether this is a responsible choice vis-à-vis the shareholders and the company. Is it right to link the sustainability policy of Snam to a non-democratic government like the Tunisian one? The negotiations for the South H2 corridor have reached a specific level that we would like to be informed on, and we would like to receive guarantees as of for the respect of human rights, and also for the information of the population that may be deprived of their land, or for the construction of the project, or for the building of hydrogen-related projects. Second point, concerning the future of SLNG, the transfer to Vado Ligure in 2026 has been extremely complicated due to the rejection by the population and the local government. A resolution declared this transfer as inefficient, very costly, and non-effective for the community. Also, the regional government of Liguria expressed the same opinion. So, due vis-à-vis a drop of 19% in the gas demand between 2021 and 2024, and a 12% drop in LNG exports in 2024, Snam is continuing to focus on the strengthening of regasification facilities. We are asking the CEO and the management whether it makes sense to invest on the relocation in 2026, 2026, or whether the company should consider the option of selling the ship before it becomes an unbearable load for everyone. And then the third point, methanization of Sardinia. ARERA suspended the key projects for inefficiency and cost reasons. We are asking the CEO and the management what the actual gas demand in Sardinia is from now to 2025. Vis-à-vis the climate change, the drop in gas consumption and the urgency to dispose of the fossil fuels, Snam is performing investments on the island with the risk of creating stranded assets in a few years. Is Snam ready to make a step backward on its investment plan in Sardinia instead of pursuing polluting projects that run the risk of damaging the reputation of the Snam? Snam is a promoter of CCS projects in Emilia-Romagna. It's a very ambitious project that aims at collecting, storing and transporting up to 4 million tons of CO2 per year until 2030. As of today, there are no projects worldwide able to store more than 1.1 million tons of CO2 per year. We are asking the CEO and the management what guarantees can be provided to the shareholders in case of failure and environmental and climate degradation, considering such a challenging goal for a system of infrastructure that Snam is supposed to build in areas that are already exposed to extreme climate events that can hardly be foreseen in the future. What guarantees can you provide to the inhabitants who have already suffered important economic and psychological damage due to extreme weather events that hit the same provinces and that can also be exposed to further damage due to accidents, leaks or breaks in pipelines for the transportation of the CO2, as it was the case in the United States. Number 5, we ask for consistency and for the respect of rights, as pointed out by the previous speaker, in the Strip of Gaza. In October 2020, Snam signed 3 MOUs with Israeli companies and has a 25% stake in ENG. According to Snam's statement, the pro quota profit in ESG between 2023 and Q1 2025 was equal to 18 million euros. We are asking the CEO and the management whether 18 million euro profit justify the exposure to a reputational damage that Snam may incur if publicly associated with war crimes. We ask the CEO and the board of directors to sell the stakes in the EMG company, to withdraw from any agreements or contracts in force with the Israeli government and companies, including NewMed Energy, Dan H2 Pro, and other Israeli companies, to start an in-depth due diligence on active partners in areas of conflict, to adopt a bounding policy for the respect of human rights in international locations in line with UN basic principles. Thank you.
Thank you. The third shareholder is Mr. Bava. My name is Marco Bava. You know my websites, marcobava.com, nuovomodello-di-sviluppo.it, and www.eduardoagnelli's-homicide.it. And I do not want to commit suicide, and any accident could be considered as a homicide. So it is hard for me to make any remark or intervention this morning. There are many discontinuity elements that I have seen. We have heard Notaio Maschetti, and There will be a meeting in his office, a meeting organized by Pirelli. And transparency is equal to 0. But here, with the highest transparency, also referring to who is following Eni and Pirelli, you have given the possibility to shareholders to make interventions. You have prepared wonderful files with the answers and the questions. So it is hard for me today to say a couple of things, primarily. First of all, that this board, and I do not have anything against the chairwoman or the CEO, but I think that this board, based on my personal experience, and I have facts to prove it, also in front of Ministro Pichetto, this board, as I said, is very versatile mentally. I'm referring to Mr. Vernier, and he's mentally very versatile. Italy is a country facing a number of enormous problems. Not only today, but also in the past. Fascism, that is still here, mafia, Camorra, and 'Ndrangheta. Against this background, many years ago, a gentleman named Enrico Mattei had problems that caused his death. I wanted to talk about Enrico Mattei, and I'm referring also to Eni and to energy that Enrico Mattei launched in the market. Back then, there was oil, and he introduced an Italian source of energy, gas. It is like today, for instance, with renewable energies. Before coming here, I went to the church facing the headquarters, the premises we are now. This is the Snam headquarters. So the church is very beautiful, and Enrico Mattei asked to build this church. From the viewpoint of management, Dr. Vernier is like the current Enrico Mattei. But you are important. You have grown in the within the energy field. And I wanted to quote you as an example as compared to other meetings convened also within Studio Marchetti and like Pirelli general meeting, for instance. In transparent general meetings, we met last year for the first time, so I was full of hopes when I arrived here. Hope of finding someone who would understand or try to understand the development requirements. You have proved to be very good. You didn't answer to my questions, but when I saw that this company carried out 2 transactions, investment in Demora, the largest factory here in Milan, and then Italgas, if you want to pay the gas network, then buy it with your own money. This is what I'm saying, not what the CEO is saying. So I attended a public meeting in Turin, in the former Economy and Commerce Department, Mr. Grospietro was there, one of the black chairmen of the meeting. And there is also an article by the European Commission about that specific meeting, like Recommon, for instance. They clarified, they shed light, and the Senate committee debated about what happened. I'm sorry to say so, Dr. Werner. I don't know who has chosen Trevisan, but in that Senate commission, Trevisan said that closed general meetings were okay with him, so there was no people disturbing the meeting like Mr. Marco Bava. So this is what happens. Either you have to choose one side or the other. Also for you, Mr. Daniel, it is not easy to be on both sides. Why? Because you have very sensitive in terms of energy issues, and I want this to be written in the minutes. And it's very hard to find people with such an experience in the energy field. You are the only one I'm familiar with, but probably every commerce agrees with me or not. They are experts in the field of energy. So you have a sensitivity, and you try to understand where the market is going. You understood where the market is going, as Mr. Mattei did. When Mr. Mattei was operating, we had no renewable energies. So Daniel is in a difficult situation. And it is not my fault whether he will probably be replaced. In the current world, he has plenty of opportunities to do more serious things elsewhere. In France, for instance, France is living nuclear energy. And this I would like to be written in the minutes. So renewable energies, you have to be free to interpret renewable energies. Daniel is not totally free yet, because he has an office and he's paid for that office. He's paid to build methane networks. The answer you gave me, that hydrogen can be transported 100%, is not true. And you know perfectly well that it is not true. The percentage is 5 to 10%. So I understand, but there must be someone who informs Italy and Europe that we are doing something wrong. As I said last year, we are making an enormous mistake when creating a hydrogen network. It is pointless to create such a network. The electric grid is the most efficient, Dr. Daniel. You know better than me. Electric engine is the most efficient in absolute terms. Electric grid has a history and a function that are deeply rooted. So we can discuss whether ovens in cement-making companies can be electrified or not. You answered yes, they can. But money is not limitless, not only in Italy, but also in Europe. Maybe they are limitless in the Arab Emirates, because in spite of Mattei and gas, Emirates have continued to grow, as parasites, to use a word that someone else is used, by using fossil energy. What is the point I'm trying to make? I don't know what will happen when you are replaced by someone who, I don't know if it is an expert in the field as much as you are. I can be sensitive enough towards energy problems, but your experience and Mr. Gallo experience was limited from a managerial viewpoint contribute significantly. So when I say that the grid, the electric grid, is is stabilized with hydrogen, this means that we don't need methane or hydrogen to transport hydrogen. This is wasted money. An electrode is less expensive and is more efficient. If I transport electricity, I can use electricity both in pure energy and to also produce hydrogen if I want hydrogen. So stabilization occurs with surpluses of grid. So I storage the hydrogen at zero cost because it is the surplus of hydrogen. On May 1st, I don't know whether you noticed it, electricity was zero cost in Italy and in other countries because the question is, you are very satisfied with transparency. You are very satisfied with Mr. Stefano Vanier, but you are quite skeptical about hydrogen. Are these the question? But the question is primarily also a remark. It is not easy, I understand, to answer. So the question is, what will you say to the person who will replace you? What are the concepts that you want to share with the person who will take your office? Because I think it would be important, to have someone who continues along your path. I don't know. I don't want to be in a rush. No one is rushing you because I don't know. Probably I misunderstood, But this is the rule. You have given time to for your intervention. So rules are for human beings. We have many human beings. There is not only one. I'm the last to speak. We're only three. Okay. So please write in the minutes that that gentleman there doesn't want me to continue. Probably he has something else to do. So I think that your question is clear. So please, can you reformulate your answer? Yes. I think we should have a national interest. These topics, all these things won't be paid by your children, but by ourselves, because we're wasting money for something that is totally useless. Because when Mr. von der Leyen was recommended to focus on hydrogen, no one said that it was supposed to be a pipeline infrastructure. The aim of such an infrastructure is to monitor, to control these energy sources. And I conclude, so you're all happy. What was mentioned earlier about Israel and Palestine should be connected to what I just said. Some states, Arab Emirates and Qatar primarily, who are extremely corrupted with our money, develop and grow based on the energy management of energy resources. Why oil before and after Mattei continues to be the #1 source of energy? Why many of those who are attending use at least 50% of their monthly income to pay the energy bills, because there is no way out. Together with my questions, I sent you a survey on energy as a public good. Gallo, in his management, when he received my documents, he published them together with my questions. So people think that renewable energies would be at zero cost. And this was officially stated in Turin last week in a contest with Minister Pichetto, Mr. Buono, who is an expert in nuclear energy, and Minister Pichetto publicly said that if renewable energies, and I shared my concept with someone else who was talking with Mr. Buono, Mr. Tosto. I don't know if you are familiar with him. He's a scientific expert on TV. And he said that the renewable energies would cost zero. This is why energy has to be considered as a public good. When they cost zero, then the value added and whatever is done in the management of energy that we pay, and not only we, but also others, clearly will disappear. So this is what I'm trying to say, Mr. Vernier. Do you think that this chain can be broken from an economic viewpoint? I think it can, through energy as a public good, as renewable energies stabilized by means of hydrogen. What is the point of creating pipelines? Just to maintain power. But you cannot maintain this power, and I say it clearly. What I'm saying is true, because hydrogen cannot be transported 100%. You know it perfectly well. So we will continue to buy and sell gas. So what was supposed to be a development in terms of Mattei's thoughts would be the new monopoly for some states, including Qatar. And you have read the news today. So they have given a plane to President Trump as a gift, a 400 million plane. This probably to also give money to Qatar, who is paying briberies, and you all know. So I give the floor to Stefano Vernier. Thank you. So I would like to answer to the 3 attendees. So our participation of 25%, this dates back to 2021. It was a very difficult time, a very different time as compared to today. Within this company, there are many subjects, not only in Snam, but also Israeli companies and partners, or Chevron, for instance. Why? Because these has been called peace pipeline. This was the initial idea, to create a bridge between Israel and Egypt, who wanted to stabilize their energy requirements, specifically for Egypt. And this is the role of this pipeline. The gas does not belong to Snam or to EMG. Snam is not involved in gas and sale of gas. It is only the shareholder of a company connecting and making stability possible within Egypt. Egypt depends on energy imports and on foreign countries, and this is its main supply source, important to maintain the stability for the country. We are extremely focused on what is happening in that part of the world, and we hope for peace. So we are aware of damage, of possible reputational damage. We continue to carry out surveys concerning the possibility of reputational damages. None of the agreements that were mentioned created cooperation, further cooperation or developments. Agreements were signed in 2020, and to the best of my knowledge, we have not carried out further activities. So based on our participation, we only monitor part of the pipeline and not directly. If something happens, of course, we will consider the sale of our shares. As far as the contribution is concerned, is lower than was mentioned in 2024. For exceptional reasons, it was 10 million euros, and this year it will be 1 million out of 1 billion and 700 million. So we will monitor the situation, and this will also be considered in the next board meeting.
Le altre domande.
As to the other questions, as far as Tunisia is concerned, you mentioned some recent events, but there is an aspect I would like to highlight. We are not involved in the production of hydrogen or in any of the hydrogen production projects that have been put in place in Tunisia. We are an infrastructure player, and this is why we have to create the conditions to use part of the hydrogen. Hydrogen is supplied to the local market and to other markets as well. This means that we will use the developers will use the soil. It is not our case, because we use the pipeline that is already existing, but it will have an impact also, and effects that will be studied with the government and the territories to use water. Desalting infrastructures will be used to make water available to the local populations, and
Gli altri operatori all'interno.
other players are also working there. And also in the neighboring Algeria. I would like to remind you that we have been in Tunisia for 2 years as shareholders, but The company has been operating there for 40, 50 years, and it has created jobs without exploiting, areas or part of soils. And our employees are quite happy with what they are doing there. Piombino. The issue of Piombino has been tackled in an incorrect way, and I'll tell you why. Why have we decided to have a declassifier in Piombino and not in Ravenna? This has been a choice due to safety reasons for the energy system in Italy. Italy was almost fully dependent from foreign countries through pipelines. Through LNG, it is possible to access the global market and to access other producing countries that are very different, more stable. And it grants the possibility to diversify, not to depend 100% from or for high percentage on countries like Russia, for instance. And this is important in terms of the safety of the country, meaning having the energy required and avoiding energy bills to increase at impossible levels, both for companies and people. This is not the final solution, of course. We are going through a transition that has a number of steps. The aim is to guarantee energy sources to meet the safety requirements, and also sources that have the least impact possible. We will see when we'll have alternative sources, but we need energy on a daily basis. So this being said, is the Piombino project useful? Yes, operators who have a role to supply the energy to the country, they think that it will take 20 years, to meet the energy requirements, 50, 40, 30 billion cubic meters. But this is a time frame covering, the lifetime of the infrastructure that is 20 years. The Piombino terminal last year was the most used in Europe, and it will continue to be so also in 2025. To diversify the gas supply from countries we did not receive anything, the United States, for instance. So relocation is, of course, an issue to be tackled also next year. But if we consider usefulness, I think that Piombino is extremely useful for the safety of the country, and it won't, and citizens won't have to bear the brunt. Sardinia. We are not promoters. As we answered, the Sardinia project is the result of the DPCM, an agreement between Sardinia and MASE. We have granted the transport, and we have received the request to carry out some works. What's happening in Sardinia is that there is a debate underway, also because the regional leadership has changed over time, about what kind of project to implement to bring gas to the island. Is it useful or not? There are many different viewpoints. We haven't produced surveys, but our RSA produced those surveys. It is an independent body, and also the ministry studied these surveys surveys to identify a solution. Technically, we are available, and as advisors, it is not up to us to provide the final answer, to provide the answer to whether gas is useful or not. By listening to Sardinia entrepreneurs and to the region of Sardinia, gas is necessary and required to decarbonize the island. But there are also many specific issues that must be tackled yet. But we are not the drivers, the main drivers of the project. But if we are asked to provide an opinion, we will do so. TTS in Ravenna. I think we have answered to the questions you have asked. You said that there are no projects worldwide over 102 million tons. When the Ravenna project, when we say that the Ravenna project could reach 4 million tons, we refer to a cluster, of mines, not one only. So this is this an exaggerated volume? Well, if we consider the level of emissions, it is a very modest level, 4 million of tons per year, but through a survey that was made by Studio Ambrosetti, in Italy alone, Arcoabate Industries, those who emit over 60 million tons. So if they become more efficient, if they get electrified, albeit partially, there will be 30 million tons of CO2 released on a yearly basis. Either we have the carbon titles and we emit CO2, or we capture the CO2. So the 4 million tons as compared to 30 millions are a partial solution to the problem, all the more so because if this project is successful and is financed and works out smoothly, then it will reach 16 million tons. That is 50% of what we produce. But we are within a system. Greece alone produces with the first four companies 4 million CO2. Do we want to create synergies with Mediterranean countries to find solutions? We do not want to implement the not in my neighbor policy, but we want to create synergies to help other countries accelerate decarbonization. It is not true that there are objective risks for people. The 12 testing months that are monitored constantly measure carefully whether there are leak or emission risks or dispersions of CO2. Honestly, the results that will be published by Emilia-Romagna will show that these dispersions do not exist because the situation has been monitored ex ante and ex post. As to the transport of CO2, this example cannot be compared to the solutions we are checking and have been examined by the competent authorities because Finati transported liquid CO2 and our is gas CO2, so a totally different situation. So I can reassure you that goal is to create networks so that emitting companies will manage to transport CO2 as a gas. Solutions of liquid CO2, CO2 can only be transported by a ship. So I think I can reassure you.
I think I've answered all the questions. As for hydrogen, the hydrogen grid, I think you referred to the safety of these networks. Well, the South H2 corridor, this was the other question. The South H2 corridor and the relevant agreement is a project of European interest. Let me say a couple of introductory words. I do not believe in the silver bullet. However, data is confirming that. A silver bullet would be something that solves all problems, but there is no such a solution. There are technologies and solutions that better fit specific energy consumption needs. From this viewpoint, the industrial, the transportation system, the hard-to-abate industrial systems in particular, have preconditions and requirements and features that are profoundly different from the needs of households. So each individual country, based on its own features, should find the technological mix that better fit their needs, thus reducing the transition costs as much as possible so that they become sustainable. If, as of today, in Europe, the energy need is covered by 70% by molecules and 30% power, net zero means 45 or 50% of consumption will be covered by molecules and 55% electrons. Well, this means, and I'm talking about 2050, I have two problems. How can I reach that situation? And when I'm in 2050, can I accept that 45% is made up of fossil molecules? I can't. So I have two solutions. First, I capture the CO2 before it is released in the atmosphere, or second, I build an alternative solution, that is green molecules. And there are two green molecules at present. Biomethane, however, its capacity is limited and cannot achieve the goals of the European Commission. So the 5 billion cubic meters, which is our goal in Italy, accounts for less than 10% of the European market. So there is still 30-35% that needs an answer. So hydrogen can be that answer in two forms. First, as a stabilizing element, or as a way to accumulate energy that would be wasted, especially the sun production, well, the solar production in peak hours, especially in southern Italy, or through the production of an effective molecule with an effective cost that requires size, scale, but it also requires a renewable source of energy with a very competitive cost. So we need a combination between solar and wind power. And these are the conditions that we can find in Northern Africa. And this is, again, an opportunity for Northern Africa not to lose important revenues that are necessary for the sustainability of the country. And then how this money is paid and is used is not a problem, but the South H2 corridor allows to use at least 65% of existing infrastructures for the transportation of gas. That's the situation that we are now analyzing. Its success will depend on the feasibility and the sustainability of the production. Is that safe? Yes, it is. And so now let me answer Bava's question. Yes, hydrogen can be transported at 100% density. There are international standards, the ASMA US standard or the EU standards. All the hydrogen pipelines that in refineries transport hydrogen at 100% purity. We had thousands of kilometers of our pipelines certified by an independent certifier for the transportation of hydrogen. Well, there are some measures that have to be taken on measures on flanges, for example, in order to allow for the transportation of hydrogen. With the existing infrastructure, we can reach 10-20%. If we wanted to transport hydrogen without mixing it, we have to change some components. But the main component, the steel pipeline, is made of a steel type that can is compatible with hydrogen. As for what I'm handing over to the new CEO, well, I did it already, but what I'm transferring him is what is the business plan of the company, and the company is convinced about the success of the business plan. The business plan translates in 5 to 10 years' time the vision that we defined. It means working on the energy security of the country by completing some infrastructure that are key for the energy transition platform too. As I said last year, I do not compete with molecules versus electrons, because we need both of them. We have to work on both avenues in order to provide an effective answer to the decarbonization of the system. Are grids necessary? Well, in the transition plan, we outline the thorough efforts that we made, and we simulated within the framework of various transition scenarios with different penetration rates of renewable energy. And we proved that in 2050, the share of the infrastructure that we manage and that is used for less than 20% accounts for less than 10%. And why that? Well, for the reasons that I mentioned earlier. And then, as for breaking power chains, I reiterate what I said. We are not a civil servant of the system. We are a player that liaises the producers with the consumers. We do not influence, we do not benefit from dominant positions both up and downstream the system. Our task is to deploy secure, safe infrastructure with the lowest environmental impact to serve the population, and then consumers can decide. Governments draft policies. Well, we need everything, as I said. We need all possible options because there's nothing worse than having a transition path with important incidents along the way. Because from a social perspective, we run the risk of making a step backward and losing the route. Then finally, and I will conclude, the environmental dimension is key. It is becoming increasingly important to pursue a single energy market in Europe. And this applies both to the molecule and to the electron. To do so, you need interconnection and you need a player leading the process. Snam, considering its size, expertise, and experience, may, I think, become one of the leading actors in this respect. Electric systems are more efficient and effective, but long-distance transportation of electrons is much less efficient than the transportation of molecules. Otherwise, we wouldn't have exported molecules from Russia, but power. Thank you. Thank you, Stefano. As usual, he has been very comprehensive and transparent, as shareholder Bava pointed out, and so he addressed all the different questions in a comprehensive and transparent way. Now let's move to the discussion of item number 3 on the agenda, authorization to purchase and dispose of treasury shares subject to revocation of the authorization granted by the ordinary shareholders meeting of the 7th of May 2024 for the part that is still to be implemented. In view of the approaching expiration of the 18-month period for the authorization to purchase resolved upon by the ordinary shareholders meeting of the 7th of May 2024, as well as the continuous existence of the reasons underlying the same, the Board of Directors proposes that the shareholders meeting renew the authorization to purchase and dispose of treasury shares for a further 18-month period for the purposes, on the terms, and in the manner set forth in the Board of Directors' explanatory report on this agenda. I therefore ask Professor Marchetti to read out the proposed resolution on item number 3 on the agenda of today's meeting. So I will summarize it. So we propose that you revoke the previous resolution to authorize the purchase of the shares, to authorize the Board of Directors to purchase treasury shares through one or more prime brokers for a maximum term of 18 months, up to 120 thousand ordinary Snam shares equal to approximately 3.55%. And so with the use of the methods and procedures provided for by law and regulations. As for the price, it cannot deviate by more than 5% from the reference price recorded on the market in the session preceding each individual transaction. If the company proposes to support the liquidity of its own shares in accordance with the criteria established by the market practice admitted, well, the purchase price will be established in compliance with the aforementioned admitted market practice. And then we authorize the Board of Directors and the Chief Executive Office to execute without time limits the acts of disposition of all or part of the company's treasury shares purchased on the basis of this resolution. And finally, we vest the Board of Directors and the Chief Executive Officer with the executive powers. Thank you, Professor Marchetti. I inform you that one shareholder has registered to speak on item number 3 on the agenda, to whom I give the floor to shareholder Bava. Well, unfortunately, there is no reply, because now I have 5 minutes to reply on 5-6 different topics. And I think this is a mistake, because by so doing, and I'm not talking about myself, I'm talking about him. Well, he provided a social message. He gave a social message that does not only pertain to the society, it also pertains to the future, and it should not be limited to saying good, well done, great, great job. So I have to take the floor on this item, because the treasury shares imply reduction in capital. Considering what Vernier said, and I think all people following his message cannot but do this. But, you know, I have some doubts, because each one has his or her own capabilities. Well, we all have our own history. He has his history, his track record, and so he knows the world of energy much better than other colleagues, without disclosing any names. It doesn't make any sense to purchase treasury shares. Well, he by right said, I, in my own responsibility for the 3 million euros I get every year, I must do what I'm asked to do. And so, well, I'm asked to install a ship, to do certain things, and I must do that. Well, you should become minister. No, you shouldn't be the CEO of Snam, because I think you have the right vision. So those who ask you to do things imply some and oblige you to make some distortions. You don't need to reduce the capital. Anyone in your role would have plenty of opportunities and plenty of investments to make, because opportunities translate into investments. Well, you start from a correct concept. You said, well, I have to have multiple options, because based on the alternatives that I have on the market, I must be ready to react. But, at a certain point, when you buy a car, sorry for the trivial example, between diesel, gasoline, hybrid, and an electric engine, you choose just one option. So at a certain point, Snam will have to make a decision, will have to make a choice. And the choice of the ship is a wrong one. Well, you said, but it works. Well, of course it does, because this is a ship that pollutes, whatever you may say, because it has to do with a polluting product. And others benefit from this gas to consume it, because you said it's a European energy source, let's say. So the European market is interested in that gas. Well, look, everything is much easier, but you must invest. Investments are needed in that direction. First, instead of ships, you would have you should have authorized photovoltaic panels. Well, gas in Sardinia, well, this is a counter trend. You would never admit it publicly, but in your mind, you perfectly know that this choice is due to the presence of certain people who have the power, also because of the money they have. They spend 1 month a year with their boat in Sardinia. They don't want to see photovoltaic panels because they are not nice. And then, well, this is also embedded in the Sardinian culture, but I do not want to go into the details of that. So I think we also have a choice to make from an economic perspective. It doesn't make any sense to bring hydrogen, considering the costs, to Europe, because then you don't know whether you are going to use hydrogen or electricity. So it doesn't make any sense to produce electricity in North Africa, for the hydrogen to be transported to Europe, and then burn this hydrogen again to produce electricity. And then, well, this was said by Prismian, transporting transporting in a power pipeline costs much less than a gas pipeline. Well, Prismian sells cables. Well, I stop you because what you're saying is pertains to the capital allocation, and we are on the item considering the purchase of treasury shares. But, I don't know what you will become after being the chair of Snam. Well, I simply want to capture your attention and the attention of the attendees who share your opinion, I think all of the people. Well, this company, I just want to say that this company doesn't need to reduce its capital. It needs a lot of investments. What Vernier has in mind costs twice as much or 3 times as much as what I may have in my mind. And I do respect this. But if he doesn't get the money to do so, and this would be okay, this would be prudent and would be correct, what shall he make? Well, you know, ships cost a lot of money. They're not free of charge. If you had deployed all the photovoltaic projects, it would have been more than enough. I don't know if you know that, but there are a lot of people with a photovoltaic system ready for operations, but they do not get the authorization. Well, these people produce a lot of energy, not just 3 kilowatts. So giving the authorization to these gentlemen would cost much less than a ship. Well, you know, this topic is being dealt with superficially. There's no logic behind this. Thank you, Stefano. All right, so let me answer both parts of the question. The purchase of treasury shares doesn't imply the reduction of capital because shares would not be cancelled. And this is a company for which the floating capital on the market accounts for 60–70%. So this is a purchase which is absolutely marginal considering the capital. But you see that this is a plan for diffused shareholding set up. The idea is to transfer the ownership of part of the capital without cancelling it, so it doesn't reduce the capital. And then moving on to the second part of the question, and sorry if I was not precise, this company does not receive orders from the government. This is a company, a joint stock company with a board of directors. But clearly, as we manage a national infrastructure, if the ministry requires a project, we do implement that project subject to the approval of the regulation authority. And the regulation authority decides whether the project has a sustainable cost ratio. We do not take any risks because we must operate in a regulated market. If you look at our business plan, we are going to invest 1.5 billion euros in the energy transition platform. It may be, they may be higher, but this is not feasible yet because there are still some regulatory gaps that need to be filled. And we need those regulations in order to manage the business according to the methods provided. So we work in a regulated market and we have to abide by the rules given by the government. And then last but not least, going back to the issue of ships, of carriers, well, there's always an answer to a specific time-related asset. It will be very nice and beautiful to see all the roofs in Italy covered with photovoltaic panels, but we need 20 years. We have to wait 20 years. And now we still have to switch on the lights. So we have to bridge that gap. There is a future, but we have to reach that future alive. All right. So now let's move to items number 4 and 5 concerning remunerations. So item number 4. Page 22. So I will now move on to item number 4, diffuse share ownership plan 2025-2027. I recall that the features of the plan are illustrated in the information documents prepared by the company pursuant to Article 114 bis of the TUF and Article 84 bis of the regulation adopted by CONSOB with Resolution 11971 of the 14th of May 1999 and made available to the public within the terms and according to the procedures provided for by the regulations in force, including by filing with the company's registered office, publication on the company's website, and the authorized storage mechanism. Thank you. So the resolution is to resolve upon the approval of the diffuser shareholding plan for the period 2025-27 under the terms and conditions described in the information document attached to the Board of Directors report on the proposal concerning the items on the agenda of the shareholders meeting number 3. And then to grant the Board of Directors all the necessary powers. So finalize the implementation regulations, carry out all formalities and communications that are necessary, and then regulate the emerging right, amend, supplement the terms and conditions, make any amendments or additions to the implementing rules, identify beneficiaries, identify the service provider, define any other terms and conditions for the implementation of the plan, provide for the disclosure. Now, item number 5, disclosure on the remuneration report on the remuneration policy, so binding resolution on the remuneration policy report, and the second section is the non-binding resolution on the remuneration paid. I'd like to remind you that pursuant to Article 123 ter of the TUF and Article 84 quater of the Issuers Regulation, the Board of Directors of Snam S.p.A. prepared the report on the remuneration policy and compensation paid 2025, which was filed at the company's registered office at Borsa and published on the company's website on the 10th of April 2025 and at the authorized storage mechanism e-market storage. I'd like to remind you that the vote of the shareholders meeting in relation to this item on the agenda is binding with reference to the first section and non-binding with reference to the second section. I also remind you that in connection with this item on the agenda, 2 separate votes will be taken based on the following proposals. I'm also referring to the letter to shareholders included in the report on remuneration policy and compensation paid, describing the main activities carried out by the Nomination and Remuneration Committee during 2024, published in accordance with the law. So Professor Rolli, the chair of the Nomination and Remuneration Committee, can read the letter, and it will be transcribed in the minutes.
Presidente, buongiorno a tutti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dear shareholders, I'm going to read for you the letter included in the remuneration report. Dear shareholders, I am pleased to present on behalf of the Nomination and Remuneration Committee and the Board the remuneration report. The document aims to illustrate in a transparent manner to all shareholders the elements that make up Snam's remuneration policy for 2025 and the results of its application for 2024. In 2024, the shareholders' meeting confirmed a high level of approval for Snam's report, which received a broad consensus from shareholders, 97.3% for Section 1 and 97.8% for Section 2. The highest level of approval recorded since 2021. During the year, the committee carried out activities on remuneration to define the policy for 2025, in line with the development of recent years. This policy aims to ensure the alignment of the interests of the company's top management with those of shareholders and stakeholders, promoting the achievement of the objectives of the new strategic plan 2025-29. In this plan, Snams look to the future, imagining its assets and investments that anticipate and adapt to the evolution of the energy mix, moving from natural gas to a pan-European multimolecular structure. This will increase the overall volumes transported through the Snam network, strengthening the company's role in the energy transition. In this letter from the chairwoman to the Appointment and Compensation Committee, the strategic plan focuses on 2 areas: investment in infrastructures and gas, along with the entire midstream value chain, investments in energy transition business. Against this background, Snam recognizes the importance of an ongoing dialogue with stakeholders, not only to ensure targeted and effective investments, but also to adopt the best market practices in the areas of governance, sustainability, and compensation. Precisely with this in mind, over the last year, the company has intensified its engagement activities with institutional investors and proxy advisors, gathering valuable feedback and ideas for improvement. As evidence of this work of listening and aligning with the expectation of investors and proxy advisors, the 2025 remuneration policy confirms the elements already introduced in the 2024 policy, with particular reference to the CEO, such as the introduction of the share ownership guidelines and the redefinition of the peer group to reflect the business and strategic background in which Snam operates. The proposals for 2025, as a continuation and completion of the path outlined, confirmed the alignment with investors and the strength of governance, also in terms of presiding over strategic principles and implementing market best practices. With great enthusiasm, we announced the launch of the Employee Shareholders Plan 2025-27, one of the innovations introduced by Chairwoman Rita Rolli. This plan represents a unique opportunity for all employees to actively share the company's value creation, strengthening their sense of belonging and alignment with Snam's objectives through favorable conditions, particularly for desk and non-desk workers who want to encourage a stable share ownership, support spending power, and promote a more inclusive financial culture, a concrete step to grow together, sharing the value creation. In 2025, several new features were introduced, covering both structural and content aspects, accompanied by a significant effort to improve graphic and communication exposition. Prominent among these is the inclusion of a people strategy section, illustrating its principle and purpose in line with emerging best practices. During 2024, this approach led to the definition of the leadership team succession plan, the creation of the development strategic roadmap, and the activation of the people digital journey. These initiatives aim to create an inclusive and participative work environment, providing a differentiating and attractive experience and ensuring the talent management across the organization. In view of the redefinition of the perimeter of managers with strategic responsibilities, which grew to 8 in 2024, thus strengthening the supervision of strategy execution, we also submit you the update of the remuneration policy for key roles to ensure alignment with corporate objectives in a pay-for-performance logic and, at the same time, support their competitiveness and attractiveness. In this direction, we have increased the weight of corporate KPIs in the MBO plan and outlined a competitive remuneration policy, at the same time introducing an upper limit to the severance policy and any entry bonuses. With this document, the company has maintained its commitment to maximum transparency, providing for evolutions in order to take into account the feedback received in the engagement process and to encourage the achievement of the guidelines outlined in the strategic plan, of which the remuneration policy is an integral part. I trust that the efforts made during the year by the committee, in collaboration with the management, in introducing some innovations in the remuneration policies can be once again understood and appreciated, receiving the necessary support for the proposed policy for 2025. I would like to take this opportunity to express my sincere appreciation on behalf of the Remuneration and Nomination Committee for the commitment and professional qualities of all the people working at Snam. I would like to conclude by thanking you, our shareholders, for your support at the shareholders meeting over the past 2 years and for the valuable contribution that we have taken into account in determining our remuneration policy. Thank you. Thank you for your kind attention. Thank you, Rita. So I ask Professor Marchetti to read the resolution proposals 5.1. After having examined all the documents and having discussed the first session and having considered Article 223, resolves to approve the first part of the remuneration policy resolution. pursuant to Article 123, Legislative Decree number 58. And as to the item 5.2, this is a non-binding resolution. The shareholders meeting of Snam, after having read the report on remuneration policy and compensation, after having examined and discussed the second session of the report, containing, pursuant to paragraph 4, an indication of the remuneration paid to the members of the board, and taking into account Article number 6, resolved to vote in favor of the second section of SNAM's report on remuneration policy and compensation paid in 2025, prepared by the company's board of directors pursuant to Article 123, third, paragraph 4. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to thank Professor Marchetti. I would like to inform you that a shareholder would like to say something concerning item number 5.1 and 5.2. I invite shareholder Bava. Yes, it is very hard to work with the method that you have illustrated. Generally, and probably Antonio Marchetti can prove it, there is a debate, there is a vote, there is an answer, and I think you would not work with this approach. No, no. You wouldn't be able to intervene if you were in my shoes. But anyway, you want evidence. And I know that you do that on purpose, not to, or to avoid me making interventions at the Remuneration Committee. Well, Marchetti is more experienced than I am. Otherwise, Pirelli won't hold a general meeting at his office. Is it true that there is this general meeting at your office or not? Yes, it is. So, Italgas yesterday, but you can find the documents. Italgas explained. There is something that has been published yesterday by Italgas. So, basically, what I want to say is the following. You have a table, this table. This table has a benefit. That is, it includes deltas. The delta of your remuneration in a year was 109%. No. You, Mrs. Chairwoman, is very valuable because you are trying not to make me speak. So, but you know, you get 10,000 euros more than the chairperson of Italgas. So I would like to understand, because I cannot read it, and I do apologize for that. But you haven't read it. You haven't read this document, have you? Well, whatever. I don't want to sound rhetorical. I heard a lot of rhetorics from the only one who is following me is Mr. Vernier. He doesn't want to talk to me outside the general meeting. He doesn't want to have any contact with me. I don't want to go too much into details, but a widespread shareholders plan. Well, we do not make any capital reduction, but you buy the shares. You buy own shares, and you. But do you give them as a gift, as an incentive, or are they paid? I like what I heard, you know. in the report. You mentioned the sense of belonging, but this is totally untrue. Dr. Vernier, he is number one in terms of sense of belonging, and he told us clearly that he does what he's asked to. So I have to put a ship there because they asked me to process GNL, etc. So I have to put that ship there. So my question is, and probably you would answer because you are going to retire, so you won't have problems. But before making such a decision, do they call you? Do they say to you, you know, we were thinking the Council of Ministers, and that is the body who decides, before making a decision, calls you, Meloni, Pichetto calls you, because there is no sense of belonging in that. You execute orders. And Mr. Vernier said it clearly, and he said that they are not interested in what Mr. Vernier is suggesting or advising. They're interested in having contacts with or making deals with Trump or North Africa. North Africa is owned by Russia, as you well know. So there are many inconsistencies from the viewpoint, from a political viewpoint, from the viewpoint of international politics, and also from a technical viewpoint. Dr. Vernier, you graduated in mathematics and physics with a focus on IT, so you're the right person. What's the point in having a pipeline to transport hydrogen? I did not understand that. It is totally pointless. Period. You said we make tests, certified tests, and we transport hydrogen 100%. How many meters? How many kilometers? We are talking about 3,000 kilometers. So please, I invite you to put what I'm saying in the minutes. I say, and I confirm, it is not possible. For 3,000 kilometers, no one can possibly transport hydrogen, 100% hydrogen. So, your question is on the sense of belonging and the widespread shareholders plan, on the inconsistency of this resolution, because I want to know whether employees pay the shares or not. When you are finished with your questions, I will provide you all the answers. So let's start from an increase of salary 109%. From the viewpoint of the accounting system as foreseen by the remuneration policy, my wage and part has a fixed and a variable share, and a part in shares that matures after 3 years. So 2024 was the first year to take or to book this share component. In the previous years, my salary was consisted only of the fixed and the variable component. This year, for the first time, I can benefit from the part in shares. When this policy was approved, it was always illustrated in all the parts. That is specifying that in 3 years' time, a part would be paid in shares. So when you read the remuneration structure, you find all the details. Yes, we will take into account what you said, and we also take into account how Italgas has decided to produce. So employees pay shares, but there is also an incentive mechanism that was planned and approved by the board based on rewarding rationale for employees. So there will be a discount in form of free shares. Out of 3 shares bought by the employee, 1 will be given to him or her for free, provided the employees keep these shares for 3 years. After 3 years, then the premium increases by 25%. This in terms of direct investment. What will be done would be to use part of the result premiums, for instance, for employees. So for management, the ratio is 1 out of 10. Every 9 shares you buy, 1 is free. And as far as the CEO is concerned, is only 1 share for free, period. Okay. I would like to thank the CEO for the answer. I turn to the discussion of items 6 to 10 on the agenda of the shareholders' meeting. 6, determination of the number of the members of the board. 7, determination of the term of office of the directors. 8, appointment of directors. 9, appointment of the chairman of the board of directors. 10, determination of the directors' compensation. Yes, I think I have answered already in your previous intervention. Snam is the decisions are taken by the board. The government makes requests or suggestions. Requests are analyzed in terms of cost and benefits by the authority. And if the investment has a positive, is considered positive, then we can implement the investment. It is not that we obey to what we are asked to. Okay. One last thing. It's not that someone calls me and gives me order. Of course, we have daily contacts with the ministry. This is very important. We have to cooperate on a daily basis, both with the government and the different institutions. I have been a chairwoman for 3 years. So in my role as chair and together with the board, we have always considered the importance of institutional roles, but also the importance of our company vis-à-vis minority and majority shareholders. Sometimes it took me some time to understand, because sometimes we think that the role of Snam is the same as the players. We have to provide service continuity. We have to guarantee a capacity, a peak capacity on a daily basis. Even though the gas volumes are reduced, we have to comply with our mission. So, as a reminder, today's shareholders meeting marks the expiration of the term of office granted by the ordinary shareholders meeting on April 27, 2022 to the company's current board of directors. And Article 13.1 of our bylaws provides that the board of directors shall be composed of no fewer than 5 or no more than 9 members. I would like to remind you that pursuant to Article 2383 of the Civil Code and 13.2 of the bylaws, directors may be appointed for a period not exceeding 3 fiscal years, and their term of office expires on the date of the shareholders' meeting convened to approve the financial statements for the last fiscal year of the term of office. Pursuant to Article 14.1 of the bylaws, the chairman of the board of directors is elected by the shareholders' meeting, and if the shareholders' meeting has not done so, the board of directors elects the chairman from among its members. Pursuant to Article 18.1 of the bylaws, directors are entitled on an annual basis and for the period of the term of office to the remuneration decided by the general shareholders' meeting at the time of their appointment. Remuneration remains valid until otherwise resolved by the shareholders' meeting. For any other information regarding items 6 to 10 on the agenda, please refer to the relevant explanatory report prepared by the Board of Directors. I ask Professor Massetti to proceed with the consent of the attendees to read only the proposed resolutions concerning item 6, 7, and 10, and to provide info with reference to the slate submitted by the shareholders for the purpose of the appointment of the Board of Directors in item 8. Microphone, please. The microphone, we cannot hear. Okay, dear. No. The list of candidates for the board of directors by shareholders CPD Reti, representing 31.35% of the share capital, is composed as follows: Exedra Chiacchella, Alexander Zentner, Agustin Skorniajenki, Kinjin Sen, Augusta Iannini, Paola Panzeri. The shareholders indicated in the documents attached to the list, collectively representing 1.32727 of Snam's share capital, jointly submitted the following slate with Piero Vanzoni, Laura Cavatorta, Andrea Mascetti. Concerning the provision of concept communication, the list submitted by asset management companies and other institutional investors is accompanied by a statement certifying the absence of any significant connection and/or relationship. All the aforementioned lists have been made available to the public at Snam's registered office on the company's website, and the authorized storage mechanism accompanied by the elements indicated in Article 114, including the declarations with which the candidates have stated under their own responsibility that there are no grounds for ineligibility. Appointment of the chairman. In the absence of specific proposals from the expiring board of directors, the shareholder meeting resolutions to resolve to appoint Alexander Zenter to the position of chairman of the board of directors. If this proposal fails to achieve an absolute majority of the capital represented at the meeting, no further voting will take place. And the board of directors will elect a chairman from among its members. As for the proposal to determine the gross annual compensation payable to each director at 70,000 euros plus reimbursement of expenses incurred in connection with their office, confirm the authorization for the extension to each director of the so-called director and officer insurance policy in accordance with the terms and conditions outlined in the board of directors report. Now, do you have any commitment? Mr. Bava wants to say something.
Ci sono alcune cose.
There are some things like the 3 years, which are by law. Well, I do not want to disclose my vote. Otherwise, I would have less minutes available. I'm against this board of directors, and I'm also against the chairman. So there will be no absolute majority. Because I think, and please write it in the minutes, I think that changing the driver in such a delicate phase, because we are going through a very delicate phase. I agree with Mr. Vernier when he said, well, the energy sector is developing and we do not know what comes in the future. We can simply be open to embrace and assess what is going on. And this is what I see in this board. This board of directors has two main features. First, the board is open to alternatives, also to different ways of thinking, and I can say this happened to me as well. And the second feature is what you said, Ms. Chair. You said you are independent, as Vernier hinted at before. And so this board of directors was not so easy to manipulate by the government. If I'm not wrong, you started your office with the old government, and the new government may have changed you because they want someone who is easier to manipulate. And this shows what I said before, and then I conclude. Unfortunately, this country has a series of original sins that I've already mentioned, 4 original sins. And therefore, I'm deeply concerned about the change in the board of directors. In a dynamic sector, and Dr. Vernier said it by right, I thought it was obvious, but actually it is not the case. Well, in that sector, we have to look at Europe. But I think Europe is making a mistake as far as hydrogen pipelines are concerned. So my concern is that we need a two-way relationship. We need a Mr. Vernier who, from Italy, goes to Europe and says, well, let's say we have data showing that. And so we need a Mr. Vernier going to Europe from Italy and confirming that. Unfortunately, we do not have such a person. Well, I had some personal relationships with Ursula for a series of reasons, but well, this relationship stopped when I said something that she didn't like concerning the text messages on COVID. And this is very dangerous because if you do not tell the truth to the very end, you run the risk of having the so-called yes men only. In the world of energy, it's very dangerous if you lag behind. And Snam is a company that, well, that, well, so far has worked properly thanks to Mr. Vernier. He had to guarantee energy sustainability, and so he said, and correct me if I'm wrong, and so he said, I do not want to say that that renewables support my energy, well, the energy demand. So I will use ships so that I can check this and in the time being, I may be able to stabilize renewable sources of energy through hydrogen. But this has to be checked, and I can do so in the meantime. So waiting for hydrogen to stabilize the renewable sources, any people who want to have power to take a shower in the morning, if there's no renewable source, well, you have cold water. And so Vernier says, well, let me put ships, because I cannot import gas from Russia any longer. And so I use the Tunisian gas, although it's Russian gas, but anyway, and let's use that gas and that ship. So within this framework, the fact of not having this flexibility or this mindset is extremely dangerous. So I have the feeling that the future will not be so rational as so far. All right. So let's now move to items from 11 to 13. 11, appointment of the statutory auditors. 12, appointment of the chairman of the board of statutory auditors. 13, determination of the remuneration of the chairman of the board of statutory auditors and of the regular statutory auditors. I'd like to remind you that today's shareholders meeting marks the end of the term of office of the Board of Statutory Auditors, and shareholders, according to Article 148 of the TUF and Article 20.3 of the bylaws, are invited to appoint as chairman of the Board of Statutory Auditors, the standing auditor elected in accordance with the procedures provided for the election of the Board of Directors or of the bylaws from among the candidates indicated in the minority list that obtained the highest number of votes. Finally, I'd like to remind you that the shareholders' meeting, pursuant to Article 2402 of the Italian Civil Code, determines the annual remuneration due to the chairman of the Board of Statutory Auditors and the standing auditors, who are also entitled to the reimbursement of expenses incurred in connection with their office. For any further information regarding items number 11 to 13, please refer to the relevant explanatory report. I ask Professor Marchetti to proceed to provide information with reference to the lists submitted by the shareholders and to read out the proposed resolution and the lists. Let's start with the appointment. Pursuant to Article 12, we have to vote on the basis of lists. CDP for the Office of Statutory Auditors proposed Maurizio Dall'Occhio, Antonella Bienintesi for the position of alternate auditor, Domenico Sappia and Antonella Carru for minority shareholders, Mauro Lonardo as a statutory auditor, Federica Albizzati as an alternate auditor. In relation to the provisions of the issuers regulation and concept communication, the list submitted by asset management companies and other institutional investors is accompanied by a declaration certifying the absence of any connection or significant relationship, as referred to in the issuers regulation. And the aforementioned lists have been made available to the public at Snam's registered office, on the company's website, and on e-market storage. So according to the provisions of Article 148 of the TUF, you are invited to appoint as chairman of the Board of Statutory Auditors the standing auditor elected in accordance with the procedures from among the candidates indicated in the minority lists that obtained the highest number of votes. In the event of the absence of minority lists, pursuant to Article 13.5 of the Articles of Association, you are invited to appoint the candidate proposed by the shareholders elected in the manner set forth in Article 23. Then for the remuneration, you are invited to set the gross annual remuneration payable to the chairman of the Board of Statutory Auditors and to each standing auditor respectively at euro 80,000 and 60,000 plus a reimbursement of expenses incurred, and to confirm the authorization to extend the directors and officers insurance policy to each standing auditor in accordance with the terms and conditions set forth in the aforementioned report. These are the proposed resolutions. So thank you, Professor Marchetti. Marco Bava has registered to speak on items 11, 12, and 13. Well, if you agree, and I think the shareholders will be happy, I would start from the declaration, from the vote declaration, and then I will go back. So as for the Board of Statutory Auditors, I will abstain from voting. On the board, I'm against. So considering what Professor Marchetti said, the absolute it's not the absolute majority. Okay, sorry, I misunderstood, but I'm against. As for the purchase of treasury shares, I say yes, because you explained the reason for the decision. And then the allocation of profits, I cannot but say yes. And in conclusion, let me say a couple of things. The first thing is actually a reflection, a thought. Considering that this is how the future looks like, I guess you will have other offices in the energy sector. So I'd like to share my thought with you. What's the sense in bringing pipelines to Ilva? It costs less if you bring to Ilva renewable energy cable. You just install an electrolyzer and you use it whenever you want. Hydrogen can be produced where, when it is needed, versus a pipeline that transports hydrogen always from the time it is opened to the time it is closed. It is much more flexible and much more cost effective. In conclusion, well, unfortunately, I had a personal experience with a gentleman called Giovanni Agnelli, who said a sentence to me that I still keep in mind, and I share the opinion. A team that is successful should not be changed. You've been successful, you've won, and you are professionals in the field in a sector which can hardly be managed, which is very difficult to manage. This is energy. So I give this to you as a definition. I don't know if you want to use it. So energy is not a tamed horse. It is a horse that you need to ride without taming it. And if you cannot ride it, you run the risk of hurting yourself. Considering the salaries and the remunerations, your successor will not be hurt, but the citizens will. In 2008, I traveled around Europe and I drove a Volkswagen, a BMW, and I said no to hydrogen, no to electric engines, and all people laughed at me. And I have a witness, the chairman of Volkswagen, who's still there. And I think the situation is clear to everyone. This being said, those who paid the price, those who would have paid the price, would have been the employees. In the field of energy, it's the whole country that pays the price, including private individuals and companies. And this means becoming poorer. Energy provides wealth. Unfortunately, the document that I sent you was not published. Energy, a public asset, because I show and I prove what I've just said. Thank you. So the discussion is now closed on the items on the agenda. I don't know if there are any requests from the shareholders to express their voting declarations on the items on the agenda. No replies are allowed. And voting declaration should and can last only 2 minutes. Okay, there are no voting declarations. And for this reason, we can proceed with the voting. 2,326,545,714 shares are present, equal to 69.22%. Let's start with item number 1, the financial statements as of the 31st of December. So please do not go away during the voting procedures, and please inform us if you are not eligible for voting or if you have to be excluded from voting, and this applies to all resolutions. So please say so now, otherwise you will all be eligible for voting. And now let's start the voting procedure on item number 1, approval of the financial statements. Item 1 on the agenda, financial statements. In favor, 98.93% of the attendees, against 1.05%, abstentions 0.1%, non-voters 0.01%. The financial statements have been approved by majority resolution. Item number 2, allocation of profits and the distribution of dividends. Please, item number 2. In favor, 99.97% of the voters, against 0.08%, abstentions 0.02%, non-voters 0.1%. So the proposal on the profit allocation has been approved by majority. Now, item number 3 on the agenda, the authorization to purchase and dispose of treasury shares, subject to the revocation of the previous resolution. So voting procedure is open on item number 3. The result is as follows: 99.78% are in favor, against 0.17%, abstentions 0.02%, non-voters 0.01%. So the resolution on item number 3 of the agenda has also been approved by majority. Let's move on with the agenda. We have now item number 4 to vote on, which is the Diffuser Shareholding Plan 2025-2027. Item number 4. Item number 4 is approved by 99.60% of voters, against 0.36%, abstentions 0.02%, non-voters 0.01%. So the item number 4 has been approved by majority. Then let's move to item number 5, 5.1, Remuneration Policy Report. and Remunerations 2025, Section 1. (5.1). The first section concerning the remuneration report, the binding proposal, 98.37% in favor, against 1.58%, abstentions 0.02%, non-voters 0.1%. So the first section has been approved by majority. Now 5.2, which is the non-binding resolution on the second section of the remuneration policy. 5.2. (5.2), 98.05% in favor, 1.91% against, 0.02% abstention, 0.01% the non-voters. The proposal is approved. And now let's move to the resolutions from item 6 onwards regarding the Board of Directors. The first resolution, item 6, is the definition of the number of board members as per resolution. Item number 6 on the agenda. (99.91% in favor, 0.06% against, 0.02% abstained, and 46 shares do not vote, has not voted. So the number of components has been approved. And now the duration of office, item number 7. So term of office of the Board of Directors. In favor are 99.39%, 0.57% against, 0.02% abstentions, and the 47 shares that I mentioned earlier have not voted. Item number 7 concerning the term of office has been approved. Now we have the item number 8, which is the appointment of the directors. So 1, 2 in favor, against, abstention, based on what we have said. The list number 1, submitted by CDP Reti, obtained 46.81% of the votes. The list number 2, submitted by asset management companies, obtained 53.11% of the votes, against 0.03% and 0.003% abstentions, and the 46 shares which have not voted. So the list submitted by asset management companies and other institutional investors has been the mostly frequently list. And so according to the regulations, the directors appointed for the aforementioned terms of office are the following: Piero Manzoni, Laura Cavatorta, Andrea Mascetti, who were in the winning list: Isidra Chiacchella, Alessandro Zentner, Agostino Scornaienchi, King Sen, Augusta Iannini, and Paola Panzeri. So with that, the new board of directors has been appointed. Item 9 on the agenda: appointment of the chairman of the board, of the chair of the board. Please vote based on the proposal submitted by CDP Reti, the one that we read out. (98.91% has voted in favor, 0.74 against, 0.032 abstentions, and 0.001 the non-voters. So the new board of directors will be chaired by Alessandro Zentner. The other members of the board has just been read. Let's now move to item number 10 on the agenda, which is the remuneration for the members of the board. In favor are 99.90% of the capital represented, 0.05 against, 0.002 abstentions, 0.001 non-voters. So the remunerations as proposed under item number 10 have been approved. The last items pertain to the Board of Statutory Auditors. Item number 11, appointment of the statutory auditors based on the lists that I read out earlier. List number 1, submitted by CDP Reti, is the one with the highest number of votes, 87.05%. And the second list, submitted by the asset management companies, obtained 12.66% of the votes against 0.03%, abstentions 0.22% and 0.01% of the non-voters. So the Board of Statutory Auditors, with 3 years as a term of office, is composed of Leonardo Antonella Biantinesi, Maurizio Dall'Occhio, and alternate auditors Federica Albizzati, Domenico Sappia, Antonella Caru. With that, let's move to item number 12 on the agenda, the appointment of the chairman. Well, in reality, we would skip this voting procedure because the bylaw, Mauro Leonardo, from the list with the highest number of votes, is appointed as chairman. And so we have item number 13 as our last item to vote on, which is the remuneration of the chairman and of the statutory auditors. 99.97% are in favor, 3,769% shares against, 0.02% abstained, and 46 shares which have not participated in the voting session. With that, the AGM has voted on all the items on the agenda, so I give back the floor to the chair. So thank you very much. Thanks for your participation and for your attention. And at 1:03 p.m, the meeting is closed. Thank you.